Welcome to the recap of the $10,000 DraftKings Best Ball contest where we're drafting against Barstool's Big Cat.
I'm playing with the heavy hitters, 10K.
Yeah, Herzig won a Best Ball contest on DraftKings last year.
I'm your host, Justin Herzig.
Oh, that was patronizing.
And this is recapping a draft that happened on July 15th against some of the top DFS best ball players in the industry. We're going to break down what happened in that draft. What picks did I make? Why did I make those picks? How do I think the draft went for some of the others in there? For those who are not aware, Best Ball is a new version of fantasy football where there are no roster changes, no free agency, no start, no sit decisions, no trades. You draft your team, and that is your team throughout the season. We'll be drafting 20 players. Of those 20 players each week, we automatically start our best scoring QB, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex spot, 1 tight end. There's a lot of strategy elements for it for people who are just getting into it. Feel free to check out how to establish the run ETR. We have a best ball package available that has rankings, it has strategy guides. I've got weekly streams as well. So all the content there to help you win at best ball this summer. This was a fun draft. Let's get to it. I don't normally go into any draft with a set strategy. Normally, I let the picks fall to me, and based off how those first couple rounds go, can then determine what that strategy is. For example, if I have the 1.01, I'm going Christian McCaffrey. I take that first pick, and then I probably wait on running backs a little later. If I'm later in the draft, if good running backs have gone, I'll go maybe 2 wide receivers, set the stage there, and try to find some running back value in the middle rounds. But for this draft, it's a bit unique. It's not one of the $20, $15 entries where you're competing against 1,000 people or 500 people in the finals. Here, it's a smaller field. It's a $10,000 buy-in. There's 144 total entries, and the final is only 4 people. A smaller field, higher buy-in. The people I'm drafting against, maybe not as much of grinders, more of kind of the whale status. Obviously, you got Barstool Big Cat, who's maybe not the biggest best ball guy, if I'm not overstepping by saying.
The people who are in this league with me are going to be very happy that I'm in this league.
So I went in with a strategy of, I got the 7th pick. If I can get Bijan, I'm going to take Bijan. If I don't get him, then I think there was a teardrop, so I'll grab one of the wide receivers. But knowing that if I can draft an elite running back, I can probably find some good wide receiver value later on. Because a lot of the times with best ball, if you miss out on the early wide receiver value, there's a cliff. And if you get caught too far behind, it's really hard to catch up. But because looking at this room, I thought we'd have a room where people are really going to try to fill up their starting rosters before they start going really into depth. So not as many people going for 4 or 5 wide receivers in the first 7 or 8 rounds. So I'm thinking if I can grab that elite running back early on, maybe some of these other people are going to be a bit more established the run, a bit more RB heavy bros. And this allows me to get my elite running back without kind of fighting or feeling like I have to overpay for one later. And the wide receivers, I'm not too concerned that I'm going to get locked out because I do think I can find some nice value in that like rounds 4 to 8 for the wide receivers. Pretty chalky through the first 5 picks. With the 6th, expecting this to be either Justin Jefferson or Bijan, we will be grabbing the other, but which one we go with will dictate how the rest of the draft goes. Jefferson goes, we get Bijan. I'm pretty happy with this. Allows us to get a hero RB on a draft that I think we're going to be able to find some falling wide receiver value throughout. So happy with a Bijan 1.7 start. All right, there's our first surprise pick of the draft. Barstool grabbing Josh Allen in the second 2.4. Everything else fairly chalky. I needed to go wide receiver there. Olave's top of the board from rankings wise, and no real complaints there. Pretty chalky down. I'm hoping Malik Neighbors can fall to us here. If not, I've got a little bit of a tricky situation. Maybe grab Kelsey and expect that I can find wide receiver value later on in the draft. Malik Neighbors goes, ooh, don't love this decision we have right now. I'm leaning Kelsey. I can't go. All right, let's do it. We're going to grab Kelsey. I think that I can find enough solid wide receivers with the next picks. Kind of playing the room here, but hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us. So as you can see, I ended up going with Travis Kelce with my third pick, which is a bit tricky. You could see I was kind of agonizing over the decision a little because traditionally, I like a lot of the wide receivers in this range. I mean, DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, like those are all guys that can have elite weekly upside, tied to really strong offenses, could have big seasons, but I went with the Travis Kelce pick. And so my thinking comes down to two core elements. The first one is we need to specifically look at this contest. So in this contest, the most difficult element is just advancing into the playoffs. 2 out of 12 teams will make it to the playoffs. That next week of the playoffs, which is week 15, 2 out of 6 advance to the next round. And then 2 out of 4 advance to the finals. And the finals is only 4 teams. So if you think about it from a math standpoint, we've got 2 out of 12, which is, 18, 17% are advancing. Then you've got 2 out of 6 that advance at 33%. Then 2 out of 4, 50%. And then there's 4 people in the finals with $100,000 minimum just for making it to the finals. And so I wanted to put extra emphasis on having a really strong regular season because that's the most difficult part of actually advancing in this structure. And Travis Kelce, when you consider a Rashee Rice likely suspension, when you consider that Travis Kelce, there might be some risk for him in the later part of the season. Maybe they give him on a snap count. He doesn't play as much. That's what we saw last year. That's baked into his ADP. Those things in traditional best ball, where I'm really trying to focus on building a team that's going to be elite in the playoffs, it's not as noteworthy. It's not as big of a deal here because the most difficult part is just advancing out of the regular season. So I can take someone like Kelce who can really carry me throughout the regular season, be a differentiator at the position. I think that's something that is unique to this contest. Of course, the DraftKings element, you've got the PPR, you have the 100-point bonuses. Without a doubt, he's the tight end that has kind of the greatest upside and benefit from this DraftKings format. But you think of the contest, you think of the site. Now, the second element, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but specific to this room, I'm thinking that people are going to really want to be filling out their roster, making sure that they get that tight end early, rather than, hey, let me go 4 wide receivers, 5 wide receivers, 6 wide receivers. And because of that, people will more likely grab running backs a little earlier. They might grab their tight end a little earlier. It allows me not to have to worry about tight end for the rest of this draft. And if others are going to focus on those positions, QB earlier, running back earlier, tight end earlier, I can continue to find that falling wide receiver value. That is the real reason we normally don't veer away from wide receiver so early in the draft. But because I think I can find it in this structure, let's say I would have actually gone with DJ Moore here, which I think it's probably the wide receiver I would have gone with. I don't know. I'd have to think about it in the moment. But let's say I go with DJ Moore. Later on, we'll be able to look and see, okay, in my 6th round pick, what tight end was available? And what wide receiver do I take instead? And then we can do a 2v2 and say, okay, Travis Kelce and whoever that wide receiver is versus DJ Moore and Evan Ingram or George Kittle or Coppins or whoever the tight end is, and make a decision on what we think was the right call. I'm not sure at this point in the draft how that's going to play out, but that's a good way to kind of make some, proactive thinking ahead decisions on how I want to draft in this spot about what might be available later on. Okay, in the 5th round, I go with Keenan Allen. I think this is a good time to take a quick pause and think through what a 2v2 could have looked like with a Travis Kelce and Keenan Allen, or grabbing DJ Moore, another Chicago wide receiver, and one of the tight ends. You look at the board, you've got Dalton Kincaid, you've got Mark Andrews both available. So would you rather have DJ Moore and Kincaid or DJ Moore and Mark Andrews? I probably would have gone Kincaid with a PPR format ahead of Andrews here. And so I think that's a close one. Keenan Allen, Travis Kelce, or DJ Moore, Kincaid. I don't know. I think it's really close. And if you look at it from an ADP standpoint, this pick is just after Kincaid and Mark Andrews' ADP. So there was no guarantee that they were going to make it to us. Now knowing that they both did, would I have rather done that? It's really close. I think I like the Kelce and Keenan Allen. I'm a fan of Keenan Allen. I think he still has it. I think he's still one of the best wide receivers at getting open. And I don't think he's someone that we're just going to lose over the age cliff. But without even getting into the specifics there, in most drafts or a lot of drafts, like Keenan Allen, his ADP was, let me look real quick, but I think it was 57. While you've got guys like Kincaid and Andrews were 53. So maybe I could have had a bit higher expectation that I would get Keenan Allen there instead of the Kincaid and Andrews. So from a process wise, I don't hate it. With the actual result, I'd call it honestly close to a coin flip between the two. But we'll see if something else is available later on for a different 2v2. All right, as we are finishing the 6th round, I think this is probably a good time. Let's do a quick recap of what we're seeing out of the 8 pick with Barstool Big Cat and his team. I think kind of be highlighted by a couple over picks. Really wanted to make sure he got his guy, but not accounting for ADP. Now, Dak Prescott is where we really got his first panic pick.
Taking Dak. That was a stupid pick. That was a dumb pick. That was a really dumb pick.
Cornering the quarterback.
Shit. That was a dumb. I just panicked and I picked Dak. That was so stupid.
There's nothing wrong with drafting Josh Allen. Josh Allen is an absolute beast. He could be QB1 on the year. But taking him in the 2nd round when he would have fallen in the 3rd round, that is a big issue. And so as people are drafting, you realize like, hey, even if you got someone you love, it's still not worth substantially reaching to get that player. We move a little further on. DJ Moore, don't hate that pick at all. I was going to consider taking him instead of Kelsey. But then in the 4th, Kenneth Walker. That's quite the reach. Kenneth Walker's falling with an ADP off into the 5th, 6th round. And so take him to 4th over someone like Isaiah Pacheco, who Pacheco is a bit of a value and a great pick in that structure right there. That's where he probably should have gone. But hey, he was looking for the explosive players, and that's what he wanted out of Kenneth Walker. I get it, but not for me. Again, same thing with Alvin Kamara, another reach. Too early in the draft just to be making these major ADP reaches, but he wants to get his guys. You're playing in a 10K tournament. If you're going to lose, you at least lose with your guys. You could see as I'm on the clock here with the 7th pick, I knew that I wanted a wide receiver. There's no question there, but it really was which wide receiver do I go after? Now, I have the ETR ranks in here so we can see that DeAndre Hopkins is the highest ranked from an ADP. He also makes sense, but in this tier, it's pretty flat as well. So I'm not only just thinking about what our rankings are saying, what our projections, I'm not just thinking about ADP, but I'm also thinking about how this pick kind of plays with the rest of my draft. Because if I draft someone like Keon Coleman, well, Josh Allen's already been taken. So I'm now grabbing a player that's not going to give me a potential stack option. And given that I don't have any quarterbacks yet, and if I look at the players out there, well, I have Travis Kelce, but I'm not getting Mahomes. I have Tank Dell, but I'm not getting CJ Stroud. I really want to be thinking about QBs that pair with their stack partner that'll fit well from a draft capital on my team. And I'm looking at my team and I see that I have Keenan Allen, I have Jaden Reed. Okay, I'll probably end up taking either Jordan Love or Caleb Williams as my first quarterback. And it's probably going to be a 3 QB team where I also throw in a Derek Carr to pair with Chris Olave later on. Now, who is that 3rd quarterback that I'd be considering? All right, well, if I go with Ladd McConkey or Brian Thomas, I think that's fine. I could get Trevor Lawrence. I could go with Justin Herbert. But that is also a little more expensive than I probably want to allocate if I'm taking someone like Jordan Love and Derek Carr, especially when I don't have any other running backs. And I really like the running backs that are available where Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert are going. DeAndre Hopkins, not only does he have the higher rank projections, but that's also with Will Levis a great spot for me to be considering a 3rd QB. Grab Levis, grab Derek Carr later on, pair those with either Jordan Love or Caleb Williams. And I think that's that right level of capital. So that's how my thought process for later on in the draft with regards to stacking is being kind of the groundwork is laid with my picks at right now. Now that we are through 7 rounds, all of the top 8 tight ends that I really like to leave a draft with at least one of them have been taken. I think it's another good time to kind of consider back on that 2v2 we discussed earlier. With the DeAndre Hopkins pick, the top 8 were already gone. So if I still wanted a tight end now, I'm going to be considering that I'm reaching for one of the later ones, and I don't love that. The Jaden Reed is probably the last one that would have been a viable 2v2. And instead of Jaden Reed, I would have gone Kyle Pitts, and then it would have been, DJ Moore early on. So Kyle Pitts and DJ Moore, or Travis Kelce and Jaden Reed. I think those are both very viable. If I would have gone the Pitts route, I've got Bijan, I've got Kyle Pitts. I can grab Kirk Cousins later on, so I get that stack element. Instead here, I go with Jaden Reed, and I'm setting myself up for the Jordan Love side of things. So, I think they both work. There's no right or wrong kind of set in stone move, but it's how you kind of play the rest of the draft. And so I think this is a good, my hypothesis is that tight ends were going to be going a bit quicker off the board. I think I was wrong on that. However, I also believe that I was able to get some falling wide receiver value and that they wouldn't kind of be charged up the draft. But I was correct on that because I'm pretty happy with where I got Jaden Reed. I'm pretty happy with where I got DeAndre Hopkins. And now having 5 wide receivers through the first 7 rounds, guys that I all really like, setting myself up for some stack partners later on, I feel pretty decent about where we ended up, even though if I would have gone DJ Moore and Travis Kelce and grabbed one of those other tight ends, I did have some good opportunities in that 5th with Kincaid or in the 6th with Pitts that still could have worked out pretty well. As we get to the 9th round of the draft, it's important to kind of take a look at our team and see where our needs are. We've got 1 quarterback, we've got 1 elite running back, we've got 5 wide receivers and 1 elite tight end. This part of the draft is where I really like focusing in on getting a lot of solid running backs. We've got running backs that are in ambiguous backfields. We're not clearly sure who the 1A is, who the 1B might be. So they all have their thorns, but in my mind, you can piecemeal together enough of these that combined with an elite guy like Bijan, you can get a pretty solid running back room. I've got that DeAndre Hopkins. I'm planning on drafting the Will Levis later on. I really want to continue in with this Tennessee stack. And hey, I'm making an overall bet on that Tennessee offense, bring in a new coaching staff. You have a sophomore year of Will Levis, takes that next step. We know they're going to be more pass heavy. That's what we saw the previous coaching staff with the Bengals. And hey, Tyjae Spears definitely is a weapon out of the backfield, both in the receiving game and rushing game. Maybe he can actually earn a larger part of that kind of rushing share with newcomer Tony Pollard, but that's where I'm leaning for the Tyjae with a bet on the offense. And I was considering going Caleb, but I think that I've got too many other QB plays later on. The Will Levis, Derek Carr late with the Jordan Love, that it's more important to grab the running back, and especially when Devin Singletary falls. Yeah, I mean, just too much, not only from a value standpoint, but just he's a workhorse on a team that I only just drafted my 3rd running back. I can still grab some later higher upside younger guys, but given that, hey, Bijan, Devin Singletary, at least in the early weeks, and in this structure, it's so important to advance out of your pod. It isn't a huge final at the end. It's a smaller field. So for me, I do want to make sure I can advance. And I think Devin Singletary works well there. And hey, maybe there's a chance that Caleb can come fall back to me. But even if he doesn't, I'm still pretty good about that Will Levis, Derek Carr, late QB to give me 3 QBs with Jordan Love. This Gus Edwards pick was a bit of a tricky one because I was really stuck between him and Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks, I love the talent. I love the profile. Explosive wide receiver. Looked great in his limited usage last year. And I'm stacking him with Jordan Love, who I already have on the team. I'm making a bet on the Packers offense, taking that next step. It makes sense that I would add Dontavian Wicks to this team. But on the other hand, I already have 5 really strong wide receivers. This is a pocket of the draft where I think it's really important to grab running backs if you're not grabbing them early on. And someone like Gus Edwards, who we think he's the starter in a very run-first offense, doesn't have the pedigree, doesn't have the explosiveness, but could still very easily put up 10, 12, 14 rushing touchdowns as the 1A on that team. And on this team, I think Wicks would have been a bit of a luxury, but Gus Edwards is someone that I really needed to get this complimentary, to get the overall core group of running backs that I was kind of lacking given my wide receiver heavy focus early. In round 12, I kept the running back momentum going, grabbing Jerome Ford, an absolute steal. I think I got him at pick 137. His ADP is 117, so I'm getting almost 2 rounds of value. And I think maybe this is because Nick Chubb comes out lifting 500 plus pounds. People think that Jerome Ford, isn't going to keep the job as long with Chubb coming back. But the way that I kind of think of it is, even if Chubb was healthy going into this year, I think Jerome Ford would probably be drafted maybe at the end of the 12, early 13th, around like the Ty Chandler, the Marshawn Lloyd, because we know Nick Chubb's not going to take the entire backfield. We saw that with Kareem Hunt and such. Jerome Ford would still have a role, and then you still have contingency upside from an injury. So I think that makes sense from a profile near that Chandler Lloyd. And here we're getting, we're pretty much at that spot. So obviously we're getting the 2 rounds of value. But this is someone that, hey, if he continues to slide, I'll probably be taking a little more Jerome Ford. I don't love him at his ADP of 117 when you look at who he's going against. But if he's going to fall this far into drafts, absolutely love him. Add him to the team. And Marshawn Lloyd falling to us at 13-7 is fantastic to go with our Packers stack. Also, him and Chandler at the end of the running backs that I really try to target. So grabbing 6 at that point, I feel pretty good. I'm probably done with running backs. I have Travis Kelce. I will end up with either one other one, maybe a stack partner. Could still possibly do 2 late ones if I think I can get one that's going to break out with Jordan Love there. I do still want to grab 2 more quarterbacks. And so with my next 2 picks, that's where I'm probably looking at targeting Will Levis and Derek Carr. My next pick's 162. Will Levis is at ADP 165, so I should be able to get him there. Derek Carr, his ADP is 174. My pick is 175, so I'm hoping I can get him there as well. If I can grab both those QBs, I feel like that'd be a really solid QB stacked room. Fingers crossed. As I add Will Levis to the team, completing the stack of DeAndre Hopkins and Tyjae Spears, it's worth looking over in the 8 position at Big Cat taking Matthew Stafford. We talked a little about this earlier, but make complete sense. When you draft Puka in the first, you take Matthew Stafford later on. Had he just gone Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford, I think that would have been the right amount of draft capital. The panic pick in Dak obviously hurt him, but
I just panicked and I picked Dak. That was so stupid.
had he have just gone those 2, he would have had a stacked Keon Coleman, Josh Allen, a stacked Puka, Matthew Stafford, some late stack options for both those later on. Honestly, not the worst, but obviously that panic pick on Dak really hurts him. Let's go. Let's have Derek Carr fall 1 more to me. Fall 1 more. Don't auto pick it. Let's go. Okay. Pretty happy with that QB room, all highly stacked. All right. Done with QBs with 3, all of them stacked. Done with running backs, 6 of them, Bijan, and those 5 in the middle. We have 5 rounds to go. With those 5 rounds, I'm thinking either 3 wide receivers and 2 very late tight ends. Could go 4 wide receivers and a tight end that I feel pretty good about. Nice thing about with what my team is right now, lots of late tight end stack options. We've got Chig for the Will Levis. We've got Juwan Johnson for Derek Carr. We've got Tucker Kraft. Even though he's injured, there's still some positive buzz on him. So I think I'll probably end up with 2 out of those 3 to pair with Kelce just to keep the stacks going and gives me a little additional insurance if Kelce misses some games. I think I'm going to go Tyler Boyd this and then play on Juwan Johnson with the next. Both of them are slight reaches, but this late in the draft, I really don't care. I'm not really losing much because it's so flat late in the drafts, but it gives me a better chance to make sure that I get both these guys. Tyler Boyd gives me another pass catcher in Tennessee for the stack, and then Juwan Johnson as well gives me that additional stack partner. So grabbing Tyler Boyd, and if you look to see who else is still available kind of from a wide receiver standpoint, it's really not much of a difference between Tyler Boyd and any of the other guys. So give me that correlation stack partner in Tyler Boyd. In the 17th, Juwan Johnson falls to us. It gives us another stack partner for Derek Carr and Chris Olave. Like how this turned out, we were kind of thinking we always knew we could get Juwan Johnson as a second part of a cast of 3 tight ends to complement with Travis Kelce. For Juwan Johnson, he's got that early camp injury, but that's okay. I'm still expecting him to be ready for the beginning of the season. Even if he does miss a game or 2 or comes off a little slow, we've got Travis Kelce coming out strong early on. This is really about, hey, come later in the season, maybe we need that kind of Derek Carr big week. Maybe it's a spike we hear there throughout the season. Or if Travis Kelce maybe misses a couple games, has some injuries, we expect Kelce to be our workhorse, but it's nice to have some correlated stack pieces as a fallback option. Was planning on waiting to the last round to grab that Tucker Kraft, but Tyler Conklin falling to pick 210 or so as a starting tight end probably just too good of value that even though I think obviously you want the correlation with the Tucker Kraft, but I wasn't getting that much a better wide receiver now than I will later on. So I didn't feel like I was losing much there. And Tyler Conklin, being the starting tight end, we've seen what he was able to do with far worse quarterbacks. So I do think there is some semblance of touchdown upside in that play. Considered the Jonnu Smith as well. I do like Jonnu a lot, but I think Tyler Conklin is just a little better play for this team. Think about the site and the platform we are playing on. We are on DraftKings where it's PPR. If you were over an underdog where it's half PPR, maybe I'd be more willing to take the Jonnu Smith where Jonnu, big playability, yards after catch ability, explosive offense, isn't going to be getting a ton of targets in Miami, but the ones he gets could be pretty valuable. So I could see that as fewer targets, fewer receptions, maybe more touchdown upside, maybe more, definitely more explosiveness in big plays. Tyler Conklin on the other end, we expect him to have a higher snap share, higher amount of routes run, higher targets. Those are all going to lead to more receptions. On a PPR format, we care more about that. So slight distinction where when you care about two players, pretty similarly, think about which one makes most sense for that site. And Tyler Conklin for DK, I think makes more sense. When I get deep into drafts, we're looking at the last couple rounds. I'm really looking for correlation and upside. And so with my final two picks, well, I knew they were going to be wide receivers. I want to try to hit on those two things. The first one in the 19th round, Devontae Walker, rookie for the Ravens. He's on a high-powered offense. He's a big play threat. He's a downfield receiver. And because he's a rookie, wider range of outcomes, has a better chance of really having a ceiling outcome from a late draft pick. And whether that's in a one-game sample size, whether there's an injury to Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, and he's able to play his way in, he's on that explosive offense already. I like that pick as a standalone, even if we don't have the strong correlation for it. With my final pick in the draft, another wide receiver, I went for another stack partner for Jordan Love, Bo Melton. Bo Melton in a small sample size, playoffs last year, really excelled. Yes, he's got a lot of talented wide receivers ahead of him, but we know Green Bay plays with 4 wide receivers. We know that they like to use them all, split, share those targets, share the route, share the snap share. And if any of those get injured, Bo Melton will elevate and be on the field with them. We know from a talent-wise, he's not far behind the other guys. He can definitely excel in a small sample size and gives me another pass-catching option for my primary stack with Jordan Love. Let's do a quick recap of how we did, and then we'll also take a look at Big Cat's team. For mine, I feel pretty happy overall. Early on, we took some chances. Went with Bijan in the first, went with Kelsey in the third, veered away from wide receiver because we thought that those wide receivers really could fall to us, and pretty happy with the value we were getting. Ended up with a wide receiver room of Chris Olave, Tank Dell, Keenan Allen, Jaden Reed, DeAndre Hopkins before adding on some late guys there as well. From a stack components, we got the Jordan Love stack, which pairs with the Jaden Reed and that late Bo Melton. We got the Will Levis, which gives us DeAndre Hopkins, the Tyjae Spears. Derek Carr gives us the Chris Olave, the Juwan Johnson. Lots of correlation, lots of stack aspects there. From the tight end, I love that we got the Travis Kelce. I love that the Juwan was the stack partner. And then Tyler Conklin was just too good of value. So I feel like throughout this draft, and the running backs, we started with the Bijan. We waited a while to draft our second running back, not until the 9th round. But in the 9th round, we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight running backs to finish out our room. And when we were getting value with Jerome Ford, nearly 2 rounds of value, Marshawn Lloyd, a round of value, plus the correlation, even Devin Singletary, I thought we got pretty good value. I think this was one where we really capitalized on what the room gave us, gave ourselves a good shot with the correlation. And when it's so important just to get out of this room, just to advance from your pod, and then once you get the playoffs, it's only 33%, 50% to advance that final round of 4. I like what the team built. I like where we stand. I think we got pretty good shot. Now, taking a look at Big Cat.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. This is going to be a disaster, but
how did it go for Big Cat? Well, we know starting off was a little rough start. Quite the reaches in the first couple rounds with Josh Allen in the second, when probably could have got him in the third. Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, both a round or 2 early. But, for someone who's never drafted before, for their first time doing best ball, there are things that I think he did well. We know the Josh Allen stacking with Keon Coleman, ending the draft with 2 Bills as well in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Dawson Knox. For the Stafford side, stacked his first round pick for Puka. So there are some things that, for someone who's doing this for the first time, I was even a little impressed with. I will say I had substantially lower expectations for someone who's never done best ball before. But you could tell he knew his guys. He liked his guys. He reached for his guys. That's probably the biggest learning point. That and the panic pick and Dak. Eliminate the Dak pick. Give him another wide receiver there. And then just don't reach as much when, gotta let the draft come to you. Let the values fall to you. Accept that you're not going to finish every draft with the guys that you absolutely love. And that's just the way it is. And that's okay. Do a couple more drafts and maybe you can get those guys without reaching. Overall, I'll probably give him let's go with a C+. We'll give a C+. Definitely not the worst draft in the room. Obviously, a bit of an uphill battle with all those reaches and the wasted pick on Dak. But hey, Big Cat, welcome to the Best Ball Streets. We would love to, we'll have another one. We'll go again. We'll have more options this summer. We'd love to keep drafting against you. And to everyone who watched us today, thank you for joining us. This has been fun. $10,000, hopefully not down the drain. Hopefully this is going to get us a winning team and a couple $100,000 in the pocket. Well, thanks again for joining. Check out Establish the Run and everything we have going on for Best Ball. We've got rankings, we've got projections, we've got strategy articles. I've got a stream every Tuesday at 4 p.m. for subscribers. So much more that we can provide you guys. Check it out. And I'm signing off. My name is Justin Herzig. You can find me on Twitter at Justin Herzig. I'm talking all the things Best Ball. I'll see you guys later.